Today marks the new season for those of us going back to school, or sending our kids to school, or just getting to the groove of things. Our society seems to move, at least here in Canada and Vancouver, according to the school schedule. So we're all coming off of our summer breaks or whatever it is we've been enjoying or doing. My hope is that you're all refreshed. And you have already, I know, according to schedule, started to dive in to school, whether it's orientation or preparation, or already in high school and elementary school. But for us as a church, we also have kind of a new season. And every season, we have a particular theme. So I'm going to share with you today, and probably throughout the beginning of September, the theme of this year for our church. And the theme is actually based on what we feel God calling us to be and to do as His church, anywhere, or as His people. And one of the aspects we want to emphasize is this: the welcome of God. And I've chosen that passage of Scripture that really focuses in on the unusual welcome of God. So the theme of the year is actually the welcome of God, but I've thrown in the word unusual. Because God's welcome is one that is unlike the welcome that is often experienced in our world. One of the things that people struggle with the most, even in our city, beautiful city of Vancouver, is loneliness. Again and again we hear people who arrive here, or people who have lived here, say it's so hard to maintain relationships. It's so hard to connect with people. People who might say, let's have coffee, and that coffee never comes. Or let's do lunch, and that lunch never happens. Or there's a nice welcome on the front end, but it's not followed through. I have to share. The reality is I've had the opportunity to reflect on how my friendships function. And the reality is this: I want to be loved. And I want to be loving. But there are limits to my loving. I don't love the way God loves. His love is so different. And so is His welcome. And so we're going to examine this passage from the Gospel of Luke. It's actually quite a remarkable one. Apologies for the missing slide. We'll get to that too. But let's just start and walk through how the welcome of God is different from the welcome of others. When is a welcome not a welcome? And the passage begins with Jesus on the Sabbath day being invited for a meal at a Pharisee's house. And for all intents and purposes, doesn't that sound like a welcome? When someone says, hey, come over to my place, I'll make you a meal, it'll be fun. When is it not fun? When is this not a good thing? When it's a trap. For those of you old school people who know the Star Wars movie. Why is it a trap? If you read the text carefully, who is there? In Luke chapter 14, who is there? There is a man with swollen arms and swollen legs. Wait a minute. Where did this guy come from? It's a setup. It's a setup. Because they know what kind of person Jesus is. They know His attitudes. They know that He has been taking care of people on the Sabbath day. And in the Ten Commandments, this is not a real Ten Commandments, you know this. But this is the commandments getting broken. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. Actually, is it really being broken? The way that God gave it to the Israelites? You see, for the Pharisees, When they read that particular commandment, you keep that day holy, they won't even let you pick up a mat from the ground. You cannot harvest grain, sure, okay, we're not working on that day. But what the word holy actually means is make it different. Set it apart. Make it special. But the way the Pharisees did it, they provided another few hundred different rules to the Ten Commandments. And they developed it into don't do nothing on the Sabbath. So when Jesus is being welcomed to this meal, they're keeping an eye on him. They're looking. What's he going to do? What's he going to do? Is he going to heal the dude? Because that's what he does. But isn't healing someone, isn't that keeping the Sabbath holy? Isn't that making it different? Isn't that making it special? I mean, Jesus is healing people all the time, but on the Sabbath, is he supposed to quit? You know to whom this day will be remembered forever? As special, as holy, as Sabbath? That man that he heals will never forget. He will tell his family, his friends, his children, his children's children, and on through the ages until you hear it here today from the scriptures itself. You remember this particular Sabbath day because of this man, because of what Jesus does. Jesus will go on and he will say to the people, people were not made for the Sabbath. The Sabbath is made for people. It's for our good. And in the New Testament later on, Paul will say, Jesus is our Sabbath. And his holiness, his specialness will spill into every single day. And so he asks, is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath or not? To all these people who have set this trap for him. He says it twice. He asks, if your child, your ox falls in the ditch, wouldn't you help it out? And this is what he gets as a response. These are crickets. They're not locusts. They won't answer because he knows their motives of welcome. When we welcome people, do we have ulterior motives? Or like Jesus, even though he's the guest, does he provide a welcome that makes that time special? Did you know you all have a gift? Your gift is yourself. Whether you're a guest or whether you're a host, when you give yourself, your best, your interest into another person, your attention, you're creating Sabbath for others. And it doesn't mean that when you go to a party, maybe you become the life of the party, so to speak, but it could be that one person that you meet and spend some conversation with. When they walk away, they go, this was a great party. I met someone who is interested and cares about what I do, who I am. We reflect the heart of God. Well, it's not just bad hosts. And when a welcome is not a welcome, there's a time when a welcome is poorly received. So as I talk about guests, Jesus will talk about bad guests. Because he knows that all the people at that party is in cahoots. Like there's a conspiracy. And so he actually challenges them and says, hey, you know, when you go to a party, it might be a good idea not to take the best seat because someone more important may show up. And then the host will say, can you move down the line? And then you'll be humiliated. Instead, take the lowest seat. Because then the host will have the opportunity to say to you, hey, you should move up. You are my guest of honor, and you will be honored. Remember this game? When's the last? You know, if we had the time, I would say, let's rearrange the chairs, let's play. Does everyone know what this game is? Yes? This is musical chairs? Yeah, one of the most terrorizing games of elementary school. Because no one wants to be, you know, like everyone gets eliminated. It's like a lose-lose proposition. Like out of 10 kids, there's going to be 9 people who lose, right? The sad thing is that this doesn't happen just for kids, does it? It happens in elementary school, high school, university, sad to say. It happens in your place of work. It happens in life. Because our society is geared to get ahead. You get a bigger paycheck. You get more recognition. You get more accolades. Now, I'm not saying that a healthy competition in a friendly environment is bad. But what is the ultimate motive? Are we just trying to get ahead? Or are we encouraging each other to be better? This is a very nuanced and subtle difference. And this is what Jesus is referring to. What if instead we live this way? That we give up our places for other people. Isn't this the way of Jesus? In Philippians it tells us he did not keep God as something to be grasped, but gave it up for us. The Prince of the universe, God himself, incarnates to be a human and dies for us. As one person, philosopher, has said it, the Son of God became a man so the people could become the children of God. This is the way of God. This is his attitude. And so Jesus calls out these guests. And we have to check our own hearts. This is not to say that you shouldn't excel at things and try your best. Not at all. That's not what I'm saying. But don't presume and be privileged and step on other people as you do it. Instead, lift others up. And let your kindness be the mark of your excellence. So there are two sides to hospitality and welcome that we need to talk about. It's not always about hosting. It's also about being a good guest. So when we talk about welcome, there are always two sides to this equation. If I welcome you, or if you welcome me, that is an invitation. There is always a response to an invitation. And we looked at how an invitation can be poorly, if it's a trap. Or how the way you receive an invitation and just barge your way in with a sense of privilege and presumption. It's not a great way to receive. But Jesus will go on. Not only has he identified that this is a trap, not only does he say, okay, there's a bad way to be at an event, to receive a welcome, there is something else. And this one runs a little more deeply. And I call it welcome to the welcome clique. You know what this is? Anyone like it? There must be someone. Yeah, okay, we got one. Okay, if you get, okay, what happens to fruitcake? And I've heard this crazy story.
It's regifted.
It's regifted. And there was a time when someone had gifted it, and after, I don't know whether it's through the whole season, I hope it wasn't over a couple of years, but they got it back. Their own fruitcake that they gifted to someone else, but it went through a couple of people first, said, oh, Merry Christmas, because this is the thing. Now, I don't like fruitcake, so now you know if you get fruitcake, who to give it to. It's Vince over there, he raised his hand. So you have a pile of fruitcake for him. But it gets re-gifted. But isn't this what Jesus is talking about? It's like a big circle, and it's crazy. Like it's funny because you're getting fruitcake. You go, I don't want this. I'm going to pass it on. What happens when re-gifting becomes an issue? Now, in certain cultures, reciprocation is not a bad thing, right? It's not bad. It's like, I'm taking care of, we take care of each other. It builds a relationship. But this is where I feel it becomes a problem. When it's just back and forth between a very small group of people. You know what I mean? And that creates a clique, because no one else gets in on this. So Jesus says this, and it's really bizarre. When you have a luncheon or a dinner, a feast that you're putting together, don't invite your friends and family. See, what? What? But that's who we invite. We invite our friends and family. Like, who else am I supposed to invite? He says really weird things. He says, bring in the blind, the lame, the poor, the sick. What? Wait a minute, if I'm sick, I'm not supposed to go to a party, right? I'm not sick. But he's talking about people who might be lame. Now, you have to understand that this is not our society. You have to understand what it is back in their day. It's not like I'm afraid someone's going to pass the cold on to me. These people are excluded. There's no accessibility. You know what I'm saying? No one's going, I'm going to build a ramp for someone who can't walk. No one's saying, I'm going to put Braille messages on the elevator so people can blind people can find their way up and down. They don't care about that. That's not happening. So unless you have a dedicated person sitting with someone who is lame, can't walk, guiding someone who is blind, these people sit in one place. They are excluded from society. And on top of this, if you're down with the Pharisees and what they teach, people who are broken are not acceptable at the temple. They are not welcome. So only the people who are well put together are invited to these parties. And there's certain people who never get to go to a party. The one thing I really like seeing in the news is that every year they celebrate the organizations that throw a Christmas party or an Easter party or a Thanksgiving dinner for those who don't normally get on. And Jesus says, when you hold a banquet, find the people who never get to go. That's what it is. When you enter a room, even one like this, who is no one talking to? When you go to school, who's that kid who's in the corner? Or by themselves at the playground? Or sitting in the whole row by themselves in the lecture hall? find these people. And the story is going to intensify. You see, here's the thing. I really like this. This is the Banksy, of course. It's very well known. Even went through the shredder once. You can look it up. Girl with the red balloon. And when I see it, it means this to me. When you love, you give it away. It doesn't come back to you. You're not looking for reciprocation when you love. You're looking to give yourself, your time, your energy, your focus, your attention away. And that's how God works. That's why there's the cross. Our remembering of what Jesus gave up in his life for us. And how he invites us to be such a people of welcome. That we're not just looking to get ahead, but when we give something, we truly give. With no expectation of return. Now I want to note quickly that this is not just charity to make yourself feel better kind of thing. It really is a devotion to something good. You're not looking for a transaction. It's not a transactional relationship. Now, I will also say this as a caveat. We do need to be careful and wise, because there are people in the world who might seek to take advantage. But my hope is that you'll be able to tell the difference and discern that. So there are caveats of boundaries. And my hope is that you will learn to be like the God you worship in your heart. So finally, Jesus is going to wind up with this. The story of the Kingdom of God banquet. Now, I'm pretty sure Jesus already made these people super uncomfortable, right? He's going, it's a trap. No one, the crickets thing. And then he goes, okay, those of you looking for better seats here, playing musical chairs and what, that's not the way God does this, okay? And he goes, and when you invite people, why is it just your own little clique and coterie? You just do it's like you're just in this little circle. No one else is ever invited in that's different. No one else is invited in who is outside. And then someone sort of goes, oh, blessed is those who are invited to God's kingdom banquet, right? I don't know what it's like. He should have just maybe changed the subject, right? It's like a really left field kind of comment. And then Jesus picks up on it and says, okay, let me tell you about the banquet. A man throws an incredible party, a massive feast. And here's the thing. He's invited people already. The invitations are out. They know when it is. They know what it is. And I want to tell you this. If a modern day banquet takes a lot to put together, some of you will recognize this, especially if you had a wedding. Can you imagine how hard it is to do it in Jesus' time, like 2,000 years ago? All the animals you have to get after, all the people. There's no email. There's no Evite or whatever to send out. You have to do this stuff by hand, by foot. You have to connect the people. It takes way longer, is what I'm saying. If you're going to prepare a meal, a feast, days and days and days and days of preparation. So these people who've invited, and this banquet is rolling down, they know it's a big deal. They know how much it takes to put one together. But, and this is the way the Bible tells it, someone's bought a new field. Someone's got new cows or oxen. Someone got married. Now, the last one seems like kind of legit. But shouldn't you bring your spouse? Hey, I'm sure there's a +1 in the invitation, right? And all three of these are 100% last-minute excuses. Remember I told you how long it takes to prep a feast? Like even in our day, you get an invitation way early. But these people say no at the last minute. So what happens? The servants are told to find the blind, the lame, the sick, all those people that Jesus talked about in that previous little talk. He says, invite those people. And the servants go, they find these people, and I'm sure they were surprised. They weren't on the original list, but they're brought in. And then they go to the master and they say, we still have room. He says, I want to fill my house, so we're going to go to the roads and alleys. Now, what does that mean? In that day, who's on the roads? People who are traveling. Or people who don't have, or are in a space where they don't have anywhere, right? Because they're on the way somewhere, and there's, when you travel, let's say I took a road trip, I have to find restaurants to get to, I gotta figure out where I'm gonna sleep. There's a lot going on, but he says, find those people. Find those people who are traveling. Find those people who don't have a home, who are just on their way. People who might be looking for a simple meal. And they get to go to a bank. This is the unwelcome, or the unusual welcome of God. It's not like other parties. It's not like other meals. And I want to tell you right now, today, here, you are invited. You are invited to this meal. Because part of it is already here, the appetizer. It's this in there. I know not every church celebrates this every Sunday, but we do. And you know why? Because there's always food on the table in the house of God. There's always a welcome waiting in the house of God. It's like going to grandma's place, or your parents' home, or a friend's home, where there's always something in that pantry. Even if you're not hungry, it's there. Food and drink. And yes, this may not be everybody's favorite version, but it's at least a reflection. I had a great meal, great communion once, probably the greatest communion I ever had this past summer. I was invited to a retreat. And after the retreat, it was a spiritual retreat, we did communion together. We got this massive custard berry pie. I remember you've been to Kraus Berry Farms. Oh, this should not be like an advertising thing. We're no sponsors here, but it's a massive pie filled with berries and custard. And so we were there, and I said, hey, why don't we have that for communion? And they were like, what? We're used to having these like little styrofoam discs. Right? And I was like, no. Like if we're going to practice a spiritual life, let's do this. Let's really practice a spiritual life. The generosity of God. His party. His feast. So we got that and some kind of white raspberry sparkling wine. So it was like, we had that for communion. Like there's a slab of pie, and there's a glass of wine, and like, thanks be to God, the body and the blood. And so in that little window with that small group of people, the lesson was this. This is a representation. That pie and that wine is a representation of that feast, of that welcome that you are all invited to. Oh, I'm so excited to go to the Feast of the Lamb. The only thing that will make it better is not only that we'll be there together, that your friends, your classmates, your co-workers, that they get an invitation to. Who carries that invitation? I do. You do. It's a bring all your friends invitation. So I want you to reflect on two things. And maybe just take a quick moment with a neighbor. So this is the interactive part of our message. Share how you have felt or experienced the welcome of God in your life. So yeah, take a moment for that. Think about it. Have I felt the welcome of Jesus? When did I feel welcome? And take a moment to share. So maybe find one or two other people and just have a nice chat. When did you feel welcome? I'm going to give you about 5-6 minutes. My hope is that you will take actually some of these conversations to your dinner or other things during this week. Ask someone, tell people in your family, hey, there's a time, when did you feel welcome? When did I experience the welcome of God? And I think a lot of us in the stories that in the group I was in, this welcome came through actually real people. Unless there's a miraculous, sometimes there's a miraculous welcome, that's fine too. But a lot of times it has to do with people. So stay in your group for one more thing. As we wind this down, after all the things we talked about, you are the ambassador of Jesus. You are the ones who do the inviting. And I want you to take a moment to pray in the group that you're in, that you might learn to welcome others into the welcome kingdom feast of God. Because if you've experienced this generosity, you've experienced this hospitality, invite them to it. Invite them to a space of knowing this generosity of God. So I'm going to give you another 5 minutes to do this, and then we'll wind up the message.